Uh, May I invite Venerable Ajahn Suchon for Dhamma Talk, the topic of the Noble Truth.
Okay. Namato Ratanatayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Zim, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. And good morning from Scotland to America. Good night. So thank you very much for inviting me and inviting me to speak on Four Noble Truths. And before going into the Four Noble Truths, we have to understand that this Four Noble Truth is the fundamental teachings of the Buddha. Now, from the very early age in human history, humans have a religion. In those days, people would go and pay respect to the mountains and trees and the rivers and even the skies, hoping to eliminate some form of a fear and some form of unknown mystery. And most importantly, about the human problems. And human lives, there are numerous challenges and problems that we face. On every possible background, location, and any social classes. Now, people, or as a human beings, we face different issues about our health, about our safety, and even our mortality. We have a fear of death. So we try to find the try to find a solution not to be dying, despite of knowing that it is inevitable, impossible. So based on these challenges and the problems and the issues that the human beings are facing, the religion or different kinds of faith continued and continue to exist. And that is the form how religion becomes so influential in every aspects of our life. A religion become a kind of a tool to explain things that which very difficult to explain in a context of a physical world. Now, it doesn't matter how many religions are there from the day when the human history began. As a result of that, there are countless religions and many religions even today. And each religion, again, has got a different classes and denominations and sects. But the ultimate goal of each religion is simply to serve the purpose of these human problems and challenges. A most dominant question that all humans have in their minds, or maybe asking or programmed to ask, is that why are we here? And what happens after we die? And what shall I do? So these are the some of the very dominant questions that we have and we are facing in everyday life. And that's the reason why religion becomes so important in every human society. Now, when we look at from the religious purpose or the concept of the religion in the West and the concept or the meaning of the religion, it's a little different compared to what we as a Buddhist will see religion. According to the Western term, religion is the concept to serve the God or expressed in a form of worship to the God. And also it is a religion in a sense that believing in or worshipping of a superhuman and that controls, or superhuman that controlling a human power, the human nature. Now Buddhism is different. In that sense, Buddhism is not a religion. And a Buddhism is simply doesn't accept the existence of the God. And now it is also known as a faith without a God. And some would regard Buddhism as the non-religious philosophy. Now Buddhism, when we look at it in that way, Buddhism is basically the teachings of the Buddha. And that is also known from the Buddhist perspective. It's called Buddha Sasana. So Buddhism is just the teachings that taught by the Buddha, the enlightened one. Again, the Buddha is not the God and not a God. No, he was a messenger, a son of the God. A Buddha is a proper name for a person who has attained the enlightenment, or the Buddha is basically means awakened one or enlightened one. And that implies that all humans, or we're all, or people are seen as, in a spiritual sense, are still asleep or in the darkness. So we are all in the darkness of the samsara. And the moment when a person who can attain the enlightenment, that is basically known as fully awakened one, that basically opening the senses or opening the eyes or opening their knowledge to see things as they truly are, rather than the concept and the contexts. So the Buddha basically, according to Buddhist perspective, we can see that there is a Buddha nature in every human being. And when we look at the Buddhism, Buddhism does not refer to find out who created the human being or who created the person, but it is emphasizing that how one can be awakened. So in that awakening process, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. The very moment when a person understands the Four Noble Truths, then that is the moment a person will be awakened and a person will be known as the Buddha. Now, obviously, here, Buddha, there are different categories. There is a Samma Sambuddha, there is a Pacceka Buddhas, and there is a Savaka Buddhas. So Samma Sambuddha is a person who was self-awakened and the ability to teach and guide others to follow the path so that they can be enlightened. And in terms of the Pacceka Buddhas, they are self-enlightened, but they will not be teaching or guiding others to follow the teachings. And the third, Savaka Buddhas, is basically means a person who is following the teachings of the Buddhas and enlightening themselves. So that is the Savaka Buddhas. But regardless of which Buddhas, they have to understand the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is in Pali terms called the Arya Satya or Chatu Arya Satya. Yeah? Chatu Arya Satya. Chatu means four, Arya means noble, and the Satya means the truth. Actually, the translation of this Arya Satya is a noble truth. Somehow, we could say that this is the truth of the realities. Yeah? So, four truths of realities. Now, Buddha's teachings, the fundamental teachings of Buddhism is this Four Noble Truth. But however, before speaking about the Four Noble Truths, Buddha's teachings can be seen in three different cornerstones. One is the Buddha, the second is the Dhamma, and the third is the Sangha. The Buddha, in a sense, he was the current Buddha. He was born in Nepal 2,600 years ago. Was a prince and left the palace at the age of 29 and spent the 6 years of practice. And the last life, he practiced 6 years and attained the enlightenment at the age of 35 and spent 45 years teaching. 45 years of teaching known as the Dhamma. And that is the Dhamma. And this Four Noble Truth is the part of the Dhamma, which we'll study or listen later. And this Dhamma, the whole teachings of the Buddha that Buddha taught for 45 years, are compiled into a books called the scripture, called the Pali scripture, which is again divided into so many volumes. In a short form, it is divided into three different sections. Number one is called the Vinaya, the rules and the regulations and the traditions. And the second is the Sutta, where we find most of his teachings that speaks about the location, people, and which teachings he taught, and after the teachings, what is the result of that teaching. There is another called the Abhidhamma, which is translated as a high teachings or Buddhist psychology. So among these three Tripitakas, the main teaching is a Four Noble Truth. Despite of this, so many vast discourses and teachings, they all comes into these Four Noble Truths. And the Sangha here is basically means, according to the Buddha's teachings, Sangha here speaking about the monastics and lay people. In terms of the monastics, they are also divided into monks and nuns. And in terms of the lay people, it is divided into two categories too, female devotees and male devotees. Those who have a strong faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, it's called Achala Saddha, who will not have any other refuges or any other practices apart from the Buddhist practice, and having a faith and a confidence in the Buddha, his enlightenment, the law of karma, so on. So this is the main fundamental part of the Buddha's or Buddhism, which is the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Now, everyone is studying about the Dhamma, that is the Four Noble Truths. The question is, what is the Four Noble Truth? Now, the Four Noble Truth, the first discourse of the Buddha, which is known as Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, he gave the entire concept of the Four Noble Truth. Now, what is the Four Noble Truth and how to be free, how to gain. And he, even in that sutta, the discourse, clearly said that understanding the Four Noble Truth made him change to be the Buddha. Now, Four Noble Truth is basically speaking about suffering that no one can deny once we are in the cycle of a birth and a death. And the Four Noble Truths are, number one is called dukkha. Dukkha is basically difficult to bear. The translation, difficult to bear. And this is again not only the physical problem, but it is both physical and psychological, and also existential dissatisfaction. So they famously translated it as a suffering, and which is again, as we know, that this is not sufficient translation for the dukkha. In a simple term, we can say pain. And we will go in detail later on. And a second noble truth is known as the samudaya, or the cause, or the origin of the cause. So origin of a pain or origin of suffering. So famous translation is origin of suffering. And this is again, is basic term is craving. So craving is the cause to arise the suffering. Dukkha, dukkha samudaya, and dukkha nirodha. So the third one is dukkha nirodha. Nirodha basically means ending. And the translation is given in English translation, it's called cessation of suffering or cessation of a pain. And this is basically overcoming all the desires. The moment when we can overcome all the desires, then that is the moment of enlightenment. So you have enlightened. You become the Buddha. Doesn't matter which category of the Buddha you are. You become the Buddha. And the fourth one is Dukkha Nirodha Patipada Gamini. That's a very long word. Dukkha Nirodha Patipada Gamini. Gamini, going, Patipada, practicing, Nirodha, ending, and Dukkha, suffering. And now this is the full translation is given. The path to cessate, the path that starts to the cessation of the suffering. Basically, in a short term, it is a magga, or a path, or the way to the cessation of pain, and which is also known as the Noble Eightfold Path. Eightfold Path. So there are 8 paths. Now, from this Four Noble Truths, what we understand that dukkha is inevitable, it's there. We have, whether the Buddha also said in the Dhammaniyama Sutta, that whether the Buddha arises in the world or not, this teaching or this fact or this reality is there, or was there, and will be. Upadhava Pikkave Tathagatanang Anupadhava Pikkave Tathagatanang Titavasa Tatu Dhamma Titata Dhammaniyamata, like that. So these teachings, these principles, or the reality, were there, is there, and will be, whether the Buddha arises or not. The Buddha simply unfold the petals and show us the reality. And the samudaya, the fact, the origin of it, again, is not a question. It's there. And then the nirodha, it's there, whether Buddha arises or not. So it's a fact. It's the reality. Dukkha samudaya, and dukkha nirodha is the universal fact, is there. It's not about Buddhism. Okay? The Buddhism is the magga, the path. That is, on the basis of that, some people say Buddhism is a way of life. Way of life. So that's why in Buddhism, it is not about what. What is the problem? What is the difficulties? What is the challenges? It's not about that. But it's about how. So all the teachings of the Buddha is how to deal with this suffering, how to deal with these problems, how to deal with these challenges. Now Buddhism is offering us this path, offering these ways to deal with it. And in order to deal with that, so Buddha is simply saying you have to know suffering. What is dukkha? And many people do not realize that they are going through this suffering or this difficult time. They will be entertaining and enjoying with that. And by the time when they realize, it's too late. It's too late. So Buddha is basically teaching us to understand this suffering. When we understand the suffering, then what happens is that we will be able to end it. And that ending path is the magga. It's like when you have a illness. Before illness, you will not be looking, you will not be thinking of that illness. Once you have the illness, you will go to see the doctor. And a doctor says that, oh, there's a possibility that this may be the cause of that suffering. And there is a possible way of ending that suffering by taking a medicine. Now, after you got the medicine, and you'll be thinking, oh, my doctor is so good. Oh, my doctor is so talented. He knows what is the cure for my illness. And you took the prescription that the doctor wrote. Okay, this medicine, you take it to the chemistry, and the chemistry will give you a medicine. But rather than going to the chemistry, you're praising this prescription and saying, oh, what wonderful, but you do not go to buy medicine, then the illness will not cure. So you have to go and get the medicine. And not only getting the medicine and saying that, oh, this will end my suffering, and put all those medicines on an altar and saying that, oh, my doctor is so good. Oh, I pray my doctor. Oh, my doctor has given this medicines, and this medicine will help me. But you are not taking a medicine. Then again, that won't help you. Yeah, that won't help you. So Buddha's teachings is not about having a medicine and put on an altar and paying respect and worshipping the medicine. Buddha is saying, take it. So there comes patipatti, practice. Take it. The moment when you take it, that means you're walking on the path. And after you have taken that medicine for some times, possible the cessation of that suffering. So this Four Noble Truth, the entire Four Noble Truth again, is summarized into two. The number one is dukkha, and number two is ending the dukkha. It's only two. There is a suffering, and this suffering can be ended. And Buddha also said so many times that my teachings is to realize the truth and ending the truth of this suffering. Now we face so many different types of sufferings in our life. But eventually, in a summary, Buddha said, it is a clinging to this five aggregates. And here, five aggregates is like a rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, vinyan. A rupa is a matter, this body, which is a massive molecule that coming together, and we can move it from one place to another in our wish, which is made of 4 elements. Now, Vedana is sensation or feeling. Sanya is a perception. Sankhara is a volitional formation. And the Vijnana is, in a way, it is a cognition. But nowadays, or in English translation, it's translated as a consciousness. In a Buddhist term, consciousness is somehow a little bit not correct translation. Buddhism speaks vijnana in a sense of a cognition, knowing. And this clinging to this 5 aggregate is the main root cause of a trouble. Now, Buddha again divided all those problems that we face in our life into ordinary suffering and produced because of the change and because of the conditioned states. Ordinary suffering, and these things you can study slowly, that what are they. And obviously, our body and mind are conditioned, and because of that conditioned, we don't want it to change, and that causes another trouble. So that is the first noble truth which needs to understand. It's called parinyaya. Parinyaya means you have to understand or you have to realize it. The very moment when you realize it, the moment when you realize this suffering or the dukkha in its true nature, then you realize that, oh, it has a cause. Oh, it has a cause. And that is the second noble truth called a dukkha samudaya. The second noble truth is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Origin of the suffering. And when we analyze that origin, we come to know that that is the craving, our desire to have. And this is the Buddha explained in 3 different terms. It's called kama tanha, bhava tanha, and vibhava tanha. A kama tanha is the sensual craving. Bhava tanha is craving for eternal existence. And the vibhava tanha is again craving for non-existence. When you look at these three cravings, we realize that all the human beings are looking for happiness in their life. And this is where all the religion comes. In order to provide some form of a happiness or some form of a confidence or security, some religion will be teaching you to have a sensual pleasure. The whole world is nothing after death. So enjoy the life. Enjoy the life. And we do not know whether the world after life exists or not. So do not worry. If there is, it's okay. If there is not, it's okay. But for this time, enjoy. So that is a kama tanha. And the second is bhava tanha, is basically thinking of eternal existence. So that is the concept where the God comes in. After death, you will be uniting to the God, and eternally you will be existent with the unity of the God. So you are reborn in heavens or in the heaven where your life will be eternal. No suffering is there, but you will be in that heaven forever. Doesn't make sense much. Human beings are not beings that would like to stay in one place for a long time. Look at last year until now, during the COVID-19, we are requested to stay at home, and how much we suffer. And just the 1 year, we can experience the suffering of being in only one place for such a long time. And think about eternal living in one place in a heaven. That will be very difficult for us. And the last one is vibhava tanha. And this vibhava tanha. And vibhava tanha is a craving for non-existence, saying that there is no afterlife and there is nothingness. This is mostly materialistic view of a seeing. And here again, we can see that many people think there is no afterlife, and they will be spoiling their times, and they become so materialistic. They become materialists. They will think of materials and gaining a brand name bags and cars and clothes like that, seeing that we have to enjoy now. There is a saying that in order to enjoy your life, don't worry even if you have many credits. You best enjoy the life. Right? So that's a bhavatan, a vibhavatan, and a non-existence. And when we understood this cause, what the Buddha is suggesting that we see that this dukkha or this suffering can be ended. This suffering can be ended, called dukkha nirodha. And dukkha nirodha is basically extinction of the suffering or extinction of the craving. And when we look at the first noble truth, the Buddha clearly said in the third noble truth, explanation of the third noble truth, that Ago patinissako mutti analayo. So we have to learn to know these ways of letting go. Jago, learning to let go. Patinissako, without having anything to do with it. Mutti, letting it fully go away. Liberation. And analayo, having no attachment, no clinging on it at all. And this is how one should be learning to let go. And that's letting go will lead you to attainment, nirodha or nibbana, which is the samabon. So it's like a ultimate goal of a Buddha's teachings is attainment of the nibbana. That is basically means extinction. Yeah, it's like a blowing out. All the places be blown out. And this moment, again, this is what we have to understand in the Buddhism, that you don't have to die to experience Nibbana. Not like in other religion. You have to die so that you will be going in the heavens or be with the God. So you don't have to die in Buddhism. You can attain Nibbana while you are awake. So while you are still alive. That's why Nibbana is the mind state, not a physical term, not a physical state. Nibbana is the mental state. Free from greed, hatred, and delusion is the state of a Nibbana. And that doesn't require you to die. You can experience it while you are alive. Like the Buddha, at the age of 35, he attained the Nibbana. That Nibbana is known as Saupadhisesa Nibbana. And the Saupadhisesa Nibbana, that means eradication of all the defilements from your mind, but your body still exists. My body is still working. Body is still working. And like the Buddha, he was alive for 45 years after he attained the Nibbana. And the second type of a Nibbana called Anupadhisesa Nibbana, which basically means the extinction of this physical body as well. So it's called the complete release. That's called Anupadhisesa Nibbana. So this Nibbana is the ultimate goal of Buddhism. Right? And in order to attain this Nibbana, you have to work. No one will give you. Not by when you are paying, worshipping, oh, the Buddha, please help me. I want to go to Nibbana. I pray to you every day. I offer you this and offer you that. Or I offer and this many eggs or this many flowers or this many no, Buddha will not give us. And which again we can find in Thailand quite a lot. People will be going and making vows or bargaining with the Buddha saying that, oh Buddha, if you granted me this blessings, I will offer you 100 eggs, boiled eggs, or a pig head, and like that. That's very sad. But again, it's okay. That's the only the way they can find this happiness in this life. But a Buddha is talking that it is not the liberation that you will gain by somebody has given to you, or lets you be arhat, lets you be sotapan. Not like that. Doesn't happen like that. So in order to gain the nibbana, the Buddha is saying that we have to work. We have to work, and we have to develop. And in the development or cultivation, Buddha summarized that we have to develop the sila, samadhi, and panya. And this has become the fundamental teachings of the Buddha too. You will hear what is the Buddha's teachings, and then many would refer to sila, samadhi, and panya. And a sila, or a morality, and then this morality, Buddha is talking about the right speech, the right action, and the right livelihood. So we have to speak the right thing, the right word, the right time, with a kind and compassion. Many people may think that I'm speaking truth. I know what is the truth, but if you are saying in a wrong place, then that is not the right speech. Right? So it's very important to know the right time, right space, right people, right condition, like that. And only then you're speaking that. A right action, and basically again avoiding any action that leads to troubles, physically doing things, not killing or not harming any beings, or not stealing, or not having a sexual misconduct. A livelihood, again, it's called samma ajiva. That basically means not having any businesses with relation to the arms or the weapons and the human trafficking and so on. That is the sila, the morality. Samadhi, and this is again very important, it's called samma vayama, samma sati, and samma samadhi. Samma vayama is any unwholesome things that may come into mind, you are stopping them, and any unwholesome things that's already in your mind, you are releasing it, and then the wholesome things that is never been developed, you are cultivating it and maintaining that. And that is a part of the samadhi, not just the sitting and meditating. The samadhi is basically recognition of it, and an ability to develop more and more, and having a mindful awareness all the time. Mind is fully united and concentrated in the moral practice. That is called samadhi. And panya is the samma ditthi and samma sankappa. Samma ditthi is translated as a right understanding. Samma sankappa is a right thought. The question may come, what is the right understanding? So right understanding is about the Four Noble Truths. So that's how comes to the Four Noble Truths. And samma sankappa, you will have, once you have a right understanding, then you will definitely have a right thought. You will be thinking rightly, with the thought of caring and sharing, and the thought of not harming, with the thought of compassion generates. That's why the fourth noble truth is the dukkha nirodha gamini patipada. This is there are eightfold noble paths, and this eightfold noble path is divided into three. That's the sila, samadhi, and panya. But when we look at that, it comes Panya, Sila, and Samadhi. So in the Panya section, there are two teachings. That's right understanding and the right thought. So that's the Samma Ditti and Samma Sankappa. And then Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, and Samma Ajiva. That's the morality section. That's the number 3 is a right speech, right, and then number 4 is a right action. Number 5 is a right livelihood. So that is the Sila section. And the last 3, which is the Samadhi section, is Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, Samma Samadhi. Or, so number 6 is a right effort. Number 7 is right mindfulness. And number 8 is right concentration. So this fulfills the entire Four Noble Truths. And the very moment when we are walking on this path of this Eightfold Noble Path, then that leads to the freedom from all the kilesas. And that's how one will attain the liberation. So this is the entire teachings that Buddha, that when we look at it, see that there is a dukkha and there is an ending of the dukkha. The Buddha is talking the first, the Four Noble Truth. In the Four Noble Truth, the first is the dukkha, that all the human beings are suffering. And then the second, the last one is the dukkha nirodhagamini patipada, which is the path that ending the suffering. And the entire Buddha's teachings, that doesn't matter how many volumes of books are there, the purpose is to realize the suffering and find a way to free your suffering. The moment when we are learning, studying, and practicing, and any teachings that leading us to find the suffering, the happiness by eradication of this suffering, that is okay. But that is the teachings of the Buddha as a Four Noble Truth. Okay. So this is the Four Noble Truths, and I will end here, opening time for the question and answer. And I believe Nisa may have something to add on. And meanwhile, if you have any questions to ask, again, you're most welcome to do so too. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you gain some understanding of a Four Noble Truth. So thank you. Any questions? Or Nisa, do you want to add something on it?
I think it's the topic is so big. I don't know how to cover it in like an hour. Just the dukkha alone. It's very difficult to understand for people who, especially young people, they don't know much of pain, physical pain, or any other pain. Most people don't. And maybe that's why young people do not, go to listen to, go to the temple or the what. I don't know, but I would like you to maybe expand on that. Normal daily living is also a dukkha. Like you wake up in the morning, you have to wash your face, go into the bathroom. It's because you have a body that you try not to accumulate all the bad things. So you try to solve the dukkha before it happened. So, but you just automatically do that, and you didn't know that this is what you're going through is a way that you try to solve or try to alleviate your suffering. But yeah, I mean, it's personally, I don't look at it that way, and until someone points out to me that that's what I do. we all face dukkha in almost every breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes we can breathe freely, sometimes we cannot, and all this kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. In terms of the dukkha, as we know, jati dukkha, jara dukkha, maranam dukkha. Yeah. Buddha explained in that detail, and the Buddha in the dukkha term. So it's basically the moment, as you said, waking up is and then going to toilet is already dukkha too. Yeah? But in a general term, so we face different challenges, health, economic, different problems, whether it's a normal life, and whether it is the universal thing. So the important part the Buddha is saying that we have to know, realize the problem, and when we realize the problem, then we search for the cause of the problems. And when we search for the problem, we have back in our mind saying that there is a goal. So aiming for the goal, that there is the end of that suffering, and then a use of that ways or means, and that's how we will be able to solve the problem. And it's like a similar to, as I said, about when we have illnesses and things. So diagnosing the disease and explain its causes. A doctor will be explaining its causes, and doctor will determine a cure, and the treatment will happen. So treatment is the Buddha's teachings. That this is how you should treat. This is the way. Nothing more than that, and that's how the whole noble truth comes into existence, and how we can deal with the natural problem and goal of our life, and the way of our life, how we can develop that things. So with this, then we can be free ourselves. So it's like in a short form, there is a happiness, there is a cause of a happiness, and then the absence of a happiness and a cause for such an absence. So this is also a Four Noble Truth we can see in that way. It's very scientific, and no one can deny. Doesn't matter whether we believe or whether people believe in the Buddha's teachings or not. No one can deny this truth. Everyone suffers, and everybody knows that when there is a suffering, it has got a cause. And when there is a cause, obviously that must end. And people were talking about it, and all the religions are talking about it, but they haven't given the path, the real path, or the direct path that leads to the freedom of that suffering, and which will be the different. So that's why it's a way of a life that leading us to be free from these troubles. And that is the beauty of a Buddha's teachings, that I would say. It's like finding ways to deal with all the troubles and finding a real happiness, the ultimate happiness. And that's why I normally say that the Buddha's teachings is not about what, it's about how. So whole Buddha's teachings is how to deal, how to solve, how to deal with it. And that's very scientific. And this is also very mathematical as well. If you do this, you will get it. If you don't, you don't get it. It's like a 2 + 2 is 4, like that. And even in the scientific research programs, you have to have a hypothesis and then finding ways to deal with that, like that. Okay. So thank you, Nisa, for extra input. Okay, anyone wants to say anything, or we have to stop here a couple of minutes there? Okay, so in that case, we will end here. Yeah, let's pay respect to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha and bless you. Okay, and thank you very much. กราบพระด้วยกันเลยเนาะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอภิวาเทมิ สวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิ สุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิ So thank you and wish you all the best. อนุโมทนาสาธุ
Thank you for the talk tonight.